Welcome to today's executive briefing, best practices for data management in the food and beverage industry. Increase profits with accurate inventory forecasting. Before we begin, I'd just like to let you all know a little bit about our company, eSoftware Professionals. We provide expert consulting service for business process automation within the food and beverage industry. Our primary focus is implementing, training, and supporting the Microsoft Dynamics Enterprise Resource Planning software for our clients. Now, most of our clients are growing companies in the food and beverage industry that all tend to have complex data management and operational process requirements. So for the past 24 years, we've helped these companies better forecast, plan and manage their supply chain, implement quality control and grading processes for inventory, better manage government regulations and recall procedures, as well as gain access to real-time information to help make informed decisions. We have a mid-sized consulting team focused on serving our customers who really take a hands-on approach to improving your operations by examining business problems and then provide technology and best practices that simplify, streamline, and standardize process to deliver measurable results. So now that I've covered a little bit about us, I'd like to begin with the primary focus for today's presentation. Now, most food and beverage producers and distributors make money by selling inventory. But many, if not most of these companies experience challenges in managing their largest investment. They all tend to have excess inventory of some items while experiencing stockouts of other items. So, the goal of forecasting and planning is allow organizations to reach their goal of effective inventory management. Now, the first part of this goal involves meeting your customers' expectations, and the second discusses finding the amount of inventory required to meet those expectations. When these principles come together, they can result in an optimal return on the amount of money you've spent in your inventory. So before we move on, I'd like to ask a question. What's your biggest forecasting and planning concern? Now, regardless of your response to the last question, it's probably safe to assume that all of you tend to benefit from improving your forecasting and planning procedures. In implementing a methodical, comprehensive action plan, utilizing proven methods can lead to greater success and reduce the headaches associated with inventory that's out of control. So if you think about your business and the people that you work with, you might have said to them, or maybe you've heard statements similar to the following. We aren't stocking the products our customers expect us to have immediately available. We're constantly out of stock of the products we're asked for most often. There's too much dead stock in our warehouse. Our turnover is much lower than our competitors. What are we doing wrong? And lastly, we work very hard. Why aren't we making money? The answer to those questions can be found by examining your supply chain, customer demand, and other factors that contribute to your inventory levels and your ability to meet your customers' expectations. We commonly refer to these examinations and inventory management practices as forecasting and planning. These two terms are very similar, but they can also mean very different things. When we forecast, we look at varying factors such as historical information, current market shifts, and other aspects to produce an educated inventory management strategy or quantity level. The next step is planning your inventory transactions, production processes, and sales channels according to your forecasts. Now, I know I mentioned this earlier, but I'll say it one more time. As a food and beverage distributor or processor, it's likely that your largest and most costly asset is your inventory. So being able to reduce your inventory carrying costs and increase margins can produce a greater effect on your bottom line than simply increasing your sales volumes. And if you're able to sell more because you have the right amount of inventory on hand, you can significantly increase your profitability as well. But there's other reasons why inventory management effectiveness is critical to a food and beverage company. One of the biggest concerns is the fact that most of your raw ingredients, as well as your finished goods, are perishable. If you don't forecast and plan accurately, you run the risk of losing inventory altogether, or treating and storing it in a way that might change its marketability down the road. So when we engage with a company to help them examine and better manage their inventory practices and forecasting methods, a critical component for us is understanding what factors are important to the business and then develop strategies to address those issues head on. We can all imagine and have probably experienced situations where we don't have enough product stock to meet a customer order. The negative effects of this are many, but the primary concerns are lost sales opportunities, lost revenue, and potentially losing a customer to a competitor for future orders. So a principal philosophy in business is to always maintain enough inventory to serve your customers' growing demand. As a result, we typically see safety stock levels and order quantities exceeding product demand. So purchasing and operations managers have a tendency to over-order products that run a risk of stocking out. In this case, you have enough inventory to meet your customer demand, but what if you've grossly over-purchased? What can that mean to your business? Well, you probably need to store the excess inventory until it can be sold. And as a food and beverage company, you might also have to change the grade of your inventory, and that could affect how it's sold in the future and to whom. To avoid long inventory turns, you might try to promote your overstock products or make them a sale item, but that still results in decreasing profit margin by item and can ultimately have a negative impact on your bottom line. So based on the negative impacts of forecasting alone, it probably makes sense to at least consider a forecasting and planning methodology in your own business to help you maximize your profitability, retain your customers and attract new ones, optimize your operations, and take advantage of those new business opportunities. So with that, I have one last question for you all, and that's, how are you currently forecasting demand? Now, most of your answers will probably support what we've generally seen in the food and beverage industry regarding production planning and demand planning. So for companies that are doing something to predict demand, the most common method is by using some calculations in an Excel spreadsheet. So I've included some examples of what this might look like. Regardless of the output, most companies either manually enter data into a spreadsheet based on historical sales and inventory levels, or they might export some information into Excel and then create a series of formulas, linked worksheets, and perhaps a few charts to help them predict their upcoming inventory requirements. Now this method can work, and usually does in the short term when volumes are low or it's a new and exciting process. But it's also an extremely manual process that usually requires constant attention to detail, and it can have a tendency to break down as formulas change and cell references or links break. What's more, the spreadsheets usually only accommodate a single forecasting method, which doesn't allow you to reference past performance based on many forecasting methods compared to actual sales for historical periods. Now there are plenty other reasons why manual methods fall short. A couple key reasons might not be as obvious as others. For example, the last two sections on this slide. Using manual methods typically stop once a forecasted number is generated, and they might not suggest potential purchase orders comparing forecast to open orders, on-hand inventory at the site level, and lead times because it's usually performed outside of the purchasing or production system. Another reason is that they fail to use collaborative forecasting, which can provide benefits well above and beyond simple inventory planning. Now we'll cover collaborative in a moment, but regardless of the reason, most food and beverage companies are aware of these risks, and still companies in this space continue to use manual methods primarily because more accurate methods are too elusive, too complex, or require additional investments in technology. Now what's important for you to understand is that what's missing in your methods can cost far more than an investment in a comprehensive forecasting methodology or new planning system. So what's missing from the usual forecasting methods? Without going into a lot of detail, I've highlighted some factors that are often overlooked or can't be easily gathered due to a lack of source information. Factors like product lead times, expiration dates, accurate adjusted gross margins based on actual numbers, and others we mentioned here and on the previous slide can be and should be included in your forecasting calculations and planning methodologies. So before we talk about the specifics of how to address planning and forecasting challenges, let's look at some different types of demand forecasting methods. We have two major areas we can point to in order to predict the future of our food and beverage sales operation. The first type of method is qualitative, which typically relies on logical judgment or extraneous factors in order to derive demand for a certain product. The other method is quantitative, which might rely more heavily on tangible factors which can be gathered from a variety of sources. In either case, it's important to understand that there is no method that's 100% accurate every time. The goal is to be as close to future demand as possible, while understanding the impact of overstock and stockout situations by product, location, and other contributing factors. Now, this philosophy is similar to that of the popular daytime game show The Price is Right. Now, the goal there is to be as close to the actual price of a prize without going over. When it comes to demand forecasting, however, it's usually better to be closest without going under. In other words, overestimating your upcoming demand for certain products. However, in some cases, it can be acceptable to underproduce or underorder. For example, a product with higher inventory carrying costs or lower adjusted gross margin might not be worth stocking for a long period of time, whereas a product with a longer shelf life, higher adjusted gross margin, and lower carrying costs can be overstocked with minimal financial impact or commercial impact. Coming up with useful forecasting models is really difficult. Not only do you have to examine your past performance and future requirements, but you also have to put the state of your business and current demand into perspective, both for volume and for time. For example, the historical orders for a certain product 10 years ago are not likely going to be a good indication of future demand for the coming 6 months. Let's look at a popular domestic food product like corn. Over the past 15 years, and even over the past 2 or 3 years, the market for corn has changed considerably due to alternative uses for that product and the emerging world markets. If we used a forecast based on the order data we had 10 years ago, it's likely we'd miss our mark because of the fluctuating nature of that specific product. So one of the first steps to accurately forecasting and planning is to take a top-down view at your internal processes, systems, current and potential markets, as well as your full supply chain in order to produce a more holistic approach to your planning activities. Now, you'll need to understand the most appropriate historical and future time frames associated with your forecasting in order to produce the appropriate calculations. Then, you may also be able to make adjustments or leverage resources from your customers as well, as part of collaborative forecasting processes. Once your forecast is complete, you'll need to plan production and procurement processes to ensure that you can meet your demand forecast. So let's look at each of these segments of our forecasting and planning model individually to better understand the principles and practices here. First, let's take a closer look at the primary forecasting method in order to determine past performance. We usually look over a period of about 18 months, but that time frame can vary depending on your specific market. So in this diagram, we start with historical usage, typically past orders of a single product or product group. From there, we can gather additional information and make adjustments to accommodate new information to refine our forecast. We can then take that information and pass it through a series of formulas to determine the best forecasting calculation for that specific product. If you're using an integrated business system or standalone forecasting program, it should be able to support an unlimited number of formulas in order to further account for your specific business metrics. We usually recommend starting with some predefined formulas, and in our case, we usually begin with 5 to 10 predefined formulas for most customers. Now, you can use those formulas to predict demand and then modify those to make them more accurate for your specific operational requirements by comparing their performance to actual historical orders over time. And then you can choose a formula that's most in line with your actual demand. If you're looking to refine your forecast further, collaborative forecasting can be a valuable asset. We usually recommend our customers engage in collaborative forecasting, which allows you to work with your customers and suppliers to better examine the future demand. When this is done well, your business can begin to act as a purchasing agent for your customers and help them plan production or distribution forecasts in order to strengthen your relationship with these outside sources and ultimately play a strategic role in their growth to further solidify future relationships. Once the collaborative process and historical forecasts are complete, we can begin formulating final adjusted forecasts for your operation. If we take a closer look at collaborative forecasting sections, we can use our business system to help work with our clients to determine what they'll need and then make sure we're ready to deliver product when they need it. We can leverage the historical information for a specific customer, run that through a formula that gathers information directly from that customer to help us better plan for production. This allows you to end up with a specific forecast for that specific customer, which you can then add to your total forecast. The more customers we can collaborate with, the more accurate our forecasting and planning will be, and your relationship with your customers will be strengthened as well. For companies that manufacture food and beverage products, once your forecasts are completed, you can now begin to look at your production model and create orders to see what might affect production based on your internal processes and the volumes of products you'll be producing in a given time period. This can help you plan other areas outside of inventory, such as external lead times, production cycles, and resource scheduling to formulate production plans that can produce the inventory needed to serve your customer base. The results of a well-planned and standardized forecasting and planning methodology are simple. You'll be better at meeting your demands of your customers while operating in a leaner environment by reducing operating costs. As a bonus, you may be able to strengthen customer and vendor relationships as well and get an edge on your competition. All of which can make you more profitable and keep your business growing, and all of which shouldn't be taken lightly in today's market. So at this point, I'd like to discuss the mechanism for developing and maintaining your forecasting and planning procedures. One of the most effective ways to accomplish this is utilizing a business system that collects the required information for forecasting and then presents it to you, the end user, the calculations, purchase order and production order suggestions, and then gives you the appropriate time frame for your historical and forecasted sales orders. It might also factor inventory sites and warehouse locations to help decide how inventory should be best utilized based on your operations and your geography. By leveraging a planning application within your business system, the information that you need is presented to you logically and in a format that you can understand and use to make more informed decisions. So after years of business process and technology consulting, it was clear that in order for emerging companies in the food and beverage market to better manage their forecasting and planning procedures, as well as other internal processes, they needed the right technology to keep them moving forward and accommodate growth in a changing market. After further research, it became apparent that there weren't many solutions out there that addressed the industry-specific needs required here, and those that did were either technologically out of date, too difficult to use or report on, or designed for the large enterprise and were simply too complex and overpriced for most food and beverage companies. So it was at this time that eSoftware professionals developed the eFood solution, which is built on the latest Microsoft Dynamics software technology. Using Dynamics NAV, which is a mainstream ERP solution with over 80,000 implementations, we designed a food and beverage specific system with functionality like forecasting, quality control, traceability, product grading, and other processes outlined on this slide. We enhanced the Dynamics solution to incorporate all of the original functionality with our newer industry solution, which is now referred to as eFood. Because eFood was built on the Microsoft Dynamics NAV Enterprise Resource Planning system, we can take advantage of non-industry specific functionality that every business needs. By tying the general functions together with the food and beverage specific solutions, we're able to deliver our customers leading-edge technology that meets virtually all of their business requirements. And in the event our customers have a requirement that's unique to their business, we can further enhance the system to accommodate that function as well. Finally, having all the data in the same centralized database allows you to have instant access to real-time information based on your job function or your preferences. To find out more about best practices for managing data and process within your food and beverage organization, please visit the following links. Additionally, if you'd like to read more about how to better manage your forecasting and planning methodology, or to learn more about how these processes are accommodated in the eFood solution built on Dynamics NAV, you can reach out to us at obiek@esopro.com to schedule an assessment or to discuss additional details. Additionally, if you'd like to learn more about the eFood solution or to schedule a demonstration based on your specific business requirement, please reach out to us at your convenience. This concludes our presentation. I'd like to thank all of you for attending. It was a pleasure having you with us today, and we hope you visit us at www.esopro.com. Thank you.